field the questions to us. And more importantly than anything else, please, forgive us for the delay, but enjoy the session, and hopefully it'll be worth the wait. So, Pete, are we still streaming it, or?
Yeah,
We're attempting to.
You are live.
We are live.
We are live.
Right,
So
how long have we been live?
probably an hour and 15 minutes.
You didn't feel like mentioning that. Right, okay. So for those of you online, apologies for the delay. Yeah. We've had some serious technology issues. So we are in our venue in Goole, where we have an AV system that costs about £300,000, which has decided not to work tonight. So we have persevered for, well, Wayne's been on site for several hours. We almost got it working, but we've abandoned the effort, and now we've gone old school. So we've got our old lapel mics, we've got an iPhone there streaming to you guys at home, but we do still have a live audience, and that's your cue to make lots of noise. Oh, well done, guys. Right, one more time.
Joanna usually
There we go, that's better. So to prove to you, there is a live audience who have also been incredibly patient. Some of them even waiting without beer for this to get going. So apologies there, guys. At least you have your beers now.
Yeah, so sorry about that. And anyone joining us in person, for those who are not familiar with it, what we used to do during COVID is we started these tasting sessions. So our customers back home who are locked in, who switched to alcohol like we all seem to, we'd do a bit of a drink along. We'd talk through our latest beers, we'd explain the process involved, the names and all those fun things, and give a bit of insight of what it was like for us during lockdown. So we had an excuse to come to the pub, which is great. So everyone was locked in at home. We were at work, and we stayed at work and drank some beers together. And it was our only social interaction, talking to people at home, talking to each other. So we got a little bit of a treat, which was great. But it started this ball rolling, and we started doing weekly YouTube live tastings where we were talking through weekly.
Was it weekly?
No, it was monthly. It was monthly tastings, talking through what we'd been up to. And we kept that going for quite a long time. This is our 61st session. We stopped doing them monthly last year. We started moving to more of a quarterly basis, but we have some loyal subscribers who buy our beer. I hope some of you may be in the audience, who've bought our beer religiously since COVID. So it's been great to get that level of support. And what we wanted to do is take this show on the road, do a bit more of an interactive tasting with the audience, and people at home can still join in. So when we say weird things, we are talking to a camera, we're not talking to you guys. So it's a bit of a strange one when you're in the audience, but hopefully you'll get.
Although we might also say strange things to you as well, we'll see. Yeah. So in the build-up of all of that and the technology issues, we've neglected to tell you who we are. So I'm Lee, I'm one of the two founders of Brew York. My role in the business now really is looking after the production side. I control the factory, essentially.
And my name's Wayne, I'm the MD at Brew York, one of the other founders, and I pretty much do everything else. So if it comes to, a big part of my job now is looking after the bars and the hospitality side of the business. So anyone not that familiar with Brew York, we started 10 years ago. We started in our city centre site in York. We had a production brewery there and an on-site tap room. And over the last 10 years, we've grown that part of the business. We moved our production site to a big state-of-the-art facility in Osbaldwick on the outskirts of York, and then we've now, Goole was our 10th venue we launched. So we're up to 10 venues in the retail side of the business now. So it's pretty busy. We've grown from being a production brewery with a tap room to a hospitality business with a brewery. That's the bigger part of our business now is this type of thing, the bars, the food. And it's great having our own brewery who can produce the type of beers that the audience want. So we can react to what's going on in the venues, we can look at what's popular, and we can try and tailor the production schedule around that, as well as keeping core beers going. So it's an interesting business to be part of. 10 years in, I think some days we wake up and wonder why we did it, but it's still pretty cool. We get to drink for free, which is awesome.
No, it's a very cool thing to do, and it's amazing how many friends you get when you work in beer, and how many volunteers there are to participate in things. So yeah, it's a wonderful career and it's a wonderful industry to be part of. So we are going to be doing 4 beers today. We are, in a second, going to talk you through how you go about tasting beer. So acknowledging that we have a bit of a new audience here potentially. So we're going to do a little exercise with you. And one of the things we're going to talk about is how the temperature of the beer is really important and how it affects your ability to taste the beer. And it's going to genuinely affect the way in which the beer tastes. So with that considered, dark beers, you don't want them super cold out of the fridge. So any dark beer you're going to want to take out of the fridge maybe an hour or two before you intend on drinking it, or maybe don't even have it in the fridge in the first place, sat in your garage, something like that, just that nice cool but ambient sort of temperature works well. So we are going to be doing one dark beer tonight. It's a barrel-aged Imperial Stout in this little can here. So if you have that in your fridge right now, I suggest you get it out in advance, because in about an hour and a half, we're going to be consuming that one.
We do talk a lot, so bear with us. It's only 4 beers to taste, but we'll do lots of waffling, and we're going to talk through in progressive style. Lee's going to tell you more about those beers in a second. But one of the things we like to encourage, normally we're in a much smaller space than this, so people need to get up and go to the loo in front of us.
Can we just pause for a second? Andrew, you've neglected to do one thing. The sweets that you've been handed out, don't eat them yet.
Yeah.
So they are part of the exercise when we do about tasting. There are other sweets, so if you have eaten yours, put your hand back up and you'll get another one given out to you.
You give me a Haribo sweet and I'll eat it straight away. So yeah, Lee mentioned the beer to take out the fridge. He's probably going to do a good job now telling you what beers to drink. But yeah, we don't really need to go through housekeeping. You know where the toilets are, they're at the rear of the room. If you need to go to the bar, you need some drinks to accompany the drinks we're going through. We usually have a chaser pint to go along with it in case we're going slow. So yeah, enjoy yourself. If we're not talking loud enough, please give us an indication and we'll make a bit more of effort. Ideally, Sean, are you listening? At the back, Sean, if you could do me a favour and see if you could get the mics working in normal mode while we're doing the talk, we might be able to get a bit of a boost in volume as well. The system's hopefully reset, but I'm not promising anything. We'll see how we get on.
Okay, so we are going to be tasting 4 beers tonight. The first one is the one you have there, Pining for the Fjords. That's a 4.1% American Pale Ale. What that is, we will explain shortly. We're then going to be having a flavoured lager. It's called Lagerita. It's flavoured like tequila and lime. So that's the second beer. That's also coming in at 4.1%. We're then moving on to a Evil Dead themed hazy pale called Juice Campbell versus the Army of Dankness. Great name, rolls off the tongue, not. And then we're going to be concluding on this little bad boy here, which is a rum barrel-aged Imperial Milk Stout flavoured with coconut, tonka beans, vanilla and cacao nibs. So everything including the kitchen sink gone into that one. And it's been aged in rum barrels that come from Martinique. So very, very special beer, that one. You'll enjoy that as your dessert to today's proceedings. So as we do each beer, we're going to talk to you about the recipe behind the beer, maybe the branding concept, why we've called it what we've called it. Anything that's particularly unique about that beer, we will be talking about. And at the end of each beer, we will be doing a little bit of insight into something else. So at one point, Wayne will talk to you about what's going on in our bars. At one point, I'll tell you about latest developments in the brewery. We'll talk to you at the end about some upcoming beers, so like what we're doing for Halloween, what we're doing for Christmas, which I know is ridiculous to be talking about in August, but we brew our Christmas beers this early, ready for the Christmas season, which is bonkers. And as we go along, it's really good if this is an interactive session. So it will be better for you, it will be better for us if you interact, if you have questions for us. So if you have a question in the room, just put your hand up and we'll come to you as soon as we can. If we have microphones working, we might even bring one to you. If we don't have a microphone working, what we will do is you'll give us a question, and for the benefit of this audience at home, we're going to have to do something a bit weird. We're going to have to repeat your question so we can then make them aware what we're answering. And the final bit that Pete always insists on me mentioning is if you have feedback or you want to be in the audience, you can contact us at info@brewyork.co.uk. And if you like this video, like it below and hit subscribe, Pete. Yeah, just give me a thumbs up.
Anyone in the audience,
I think I'm close
subscribe to our YouTube channel as well.
I think I'm close to saying what I'm supposed to be. So before we get into sampling this beer, we're going to talk about how we taste beer, and we're going to talk about your perception of flavour. So at home, you'll have to do this very quickly. Hopefully you've got a packet of crisps or something like that in front of you, and you're going to have to improvise. So in the room, you're going to take this sweet in one hand. You're going to hold your nose like this. You're going to put the sweet in your mouth. You're going to begin to chew that sweet. And when I say, you're going to release your nose and inhale. So are we ready? Yeah. So sweet into your mouth. Holding your nose, chew that sweet. You're going to chew it for 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. Release your nose, inhale. What did we notice? Yeah. So a much stronger taste once you release the nose. And this is because 80% of your perception of flavour is to do with your nose, not your tongue. So if you think about it, when you have a cold, you lose your ability to taste things. And that's because your nose gets blocked. So your nose plays a massive role in how you taste things. And that's especially so in beer. And there's this thing called a retronasal action. So when you drink the beer, you get a little bit of a taste. It's in your mouth, it's circulating around. You can taste it a bit. When you really taste the beer is when you swallow, and then the aromas of that come back up your throat and come through your nose. So the retronasal bit coating the back of your throat, coming out your nose, that's when you truly taste something. It's all about the nose. So when you're drinking, sorry, I tend to get, I do get carried away. Well, no, the intention was we did this bit first before they sampled the beer. So when you're drinking, it's a bit pompous, but I'm going to suggest you do the drive-by. So you're going to do this. And I know you look like idiots, and I look like an idiot right now, but you're just trying to get a sense of the aroma of it. And what you can do also is you can kind of put your hand over the top and gently swill it around, and that's going to release the kind of volatiles from the beer, and then you can inhale that, and hopefully you'll notice you get a much bigger hit of the character coming now you've kind of released those volatiles. Then when you drink it into the mouth, swill it around a bit, swallow, exhale, and then make your judgment of the beer. Okay? So that's how we're going to go on about drinking beer. And my final point, sorry, I know I go on. Temperature is so important in beer, but marketeers would like to distract you from that. So if you think of something like Guinness Extra Cold, Carling Extra Cold, why are they serving it to you that cold? So what I've just told you is temperature affects flavour. And the colder you make something, the harder it is to taste it. Well, if you can't taste it, you can't be offended by it. So if they make your lager really cold or they make your Guinness really cold, you can't taste it. So how could you possibly dislike it? So these extra cold products are not about making something fancier. It's about fooling you into thinking that you're drinking something great. So I would recommend that you avoid these products, drink things the way that they're supposed to be drunk at a proper cellar temperature or with dark beers slightly warmer. Sorry, now you can get a word in.
It's all right. It's one of those interesting things. We obviously when it's warm like this, you want a cold beer because you want it to feel refreshed. So there's two different things. You're not having that for the flavour. It's the refreshment element of having something liquid that you enjoy. You wouldn't really want a warm pint. Our cask beer sales really plummet across all our venues when the weather picks up because it's not quite as refreshing as a cold lager. So there's definitely a time and a place for a different beer style. But if you wanted to taste the beer, temperature is such a key factor. So a little bit about our first beer. Sorry, we've been talking for probably 20 minutes and we haven't told you about the beer or told you to start drinking the beer. So first up on today's tasting is Pining for the Fjords. Oh, easy for me to say. Pining for the Fjords. So does anyone get the reference, the name? Because one of the things we didn't mention is that we do love a punny name. So when we first started, one of the things we like to do was...
Monty Python.
Thank you. It is indeed, Monty Python. So we did...
Hence on the front, the Norwegian blue.
We did lots of different references and puns. And one of the first ever collaboration beers we did was a beer called X-Parrot. And again, from the same Monty Python sketch, it's an X-Parrot. And it was because it was because we did a collaboration with a brewery from Newcastle called...
Box Social?
No, it wasn't Box Social.
Oh, no. Oh, they're no longer
trade, which is a shame. But every single beer they did was a reference to film or TV. So we were trying to think of something that we thought was funny and amusing, and we were brewing a really fruity tropical beer, so we wanted it to be parrot related. So X-Parrot came about due to Monty Python, and that beer was a 6.5% tropical fruit IPA. So it was crazy at the time, and it tasted like fruit juice. It's really easy drinking, and you had a couple of those and you really enjoyed it. But And one of the things that happened with that beer was when lockdown hit, we were fortunate enough to be approached by Morrison's to ask if we could brew a beer to sell in there. And they said, can you brew ex-Parrot? And we said we could, but we wouldn't be able to afford to sell it to you guys to sell at the prices supermarkets sell on at. So we tried to make a version that was a little bit more accessible. So we dialed down the fruit a little bit, not too much. We dialed down the strength a little bit, so we took it down to 5%, and we brought what became our biggest selling beer, which is Juice Forsyth. So we have Juice Forsyth on draft in all our venues. It's not the biggest selling beer right now for us. That's Coney, which is our hazy pale. But it was the biggest selling beer for us for many years, because we managed to get it into Morrison's, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Asda, and Tesco Regional. So it quickly took off for us. And it was great to be able to take something that we took inspiration from as the start of our brewing journey and make it a little more everyday and mainstream, and people got to enjoy it. It was on the Graham Norton show. It was on, oh no, not Graham Norton. It was on the Saturday Breakfast show. What's that one called? Saturday Kitchen. No,
Isn't it? It was, yeah, Saturday Kitchen. Yeah, Ollie, the wine guy, was on there, and he advertised it as being available in Waitrose, which was a bit annoying for Morrison's, given we'd developed the beer for Morrison's. But anyway.
So yeah, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but just trying to explain why we did a beer called Pining for the Fjords. So we decided to bring a name back, or a link to a previous name we did, and this beer is a relatively simple for us. It's a 4.1% beer, so the ABV is pretty accessible. It's not too strong. And what we brewed is more of a classic APA, American Pale Ale. So when you look at the clarity of the beer, it's no lager, but it's still relatively clear. It's got a nice bit of colour to it. It's not hazy like what a lot of modern beer styles are, and there's still a nice aroma to it. It's what we would describe as a bit more piney. So the American hops we use are a bit piney. If you think of resin and that type of flavour, that's what we get from some of these West Coast American hops, which is a big favourite style of myself and Lee. And what we've used in this one are two American hops, one called Simcoe and one called Chinook. So one of the many difficult things we have to do in our industry, in our job, is go to beer festivals. It's a chore, but someone's got to drink lots of beer. But for the first time in our 10 years, we got invited to America last year to go and do the hop harvest. So a lot of the hops we use in our beers are American, and most of them are grown in Yakima in Washington. And they invited us across to go and select the hops that were being brought into the UK this year. So there was about 10 different breweries represented across there, and we chose all of the different hop varieties that Barfhouse, our hop supplier, were going to bring into the UK to sell all the other breweries this year. So the two of the varieties were Chinook and Simcoe, which are in these beers. So it was a great experience. We got to go and see where they were grown, see the harvest, choose the different varieties from the different farms. It was very difficult, because they all, at the end of the session, they all start tasting and smelling the same. So it became very difficult.
You go a bit nose blind. You go a bit nose blind after a while. And Andrew's saying we need to talk up a bit. And I think we did have a question over here, did we?
Yeah, so the question was, did we choose the hops as a group of breweries? And that, yes, exactly how it worked. So some breweries, much bigger than ours, get to choose which farm they're going to get their entire supply from. We don't buy that much of one specific variety of hops. We buy a lot of hops overall, but not just one specific variety. So for us, we helped influence that variety they're going to bring into the UK that's available for all the other UK breweries.
Yeah, so I mean, if we really want to get into the geeky science of it, and I do like to geek out on this kind of stuff, hops are an agricultural product. So every year, dependent on the environmental conditions, the terroir, how much sun there's been, how much rain there's been, it changes every year. The amount of oil it produces, that's where the flavour's going to be. So what your hop supplier has to do is to take that bit from that field, that bit from that field, that bit from that field, and pull it all together and blend it into a pellet that they consider to be the signature character of that particular hop. So Citra is the one that's most well known. And when you go and do this hop selection, what you are doing is helping them pick the varieties that you think are most representative of that character, and then they blend them all together. So then when we're making our beers, the citra that we're using is going to be the same every time, because you like consistency in your beers. You don't want, if you're buying that same thing every time at the bar, you don't want it tasting slightly fruitier this time, slightly more piney next time, etc. So it's really, really important work they do, and it really is a privilege to get out there and do it. And boy, do they look after you once you're out there. That bit was fun.
It's a great experience, and it's great to see. We're massively in the name Brew York comes from obviously a pun of New York, and the reason we called the Brew York was because we loved American homebrew and craft beer that was going on 10, 12 years ago. Well, longer than that, but we were trying it in the UK at that time. So one of the huge influences to both of us was a beer called Sierra Nevada. So Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, you used to see in a lot of bars. You don't see it as much in the UK anymore unless it's a specialist craft beer bar. But it was a great product, a great beer, and it really helped fall in love with that type of beer style. So we wanted to do more and more beers that were influenced by American craft brewers at the time, and we weren't big fans of UK hops. So 10 years in, we do use UK hops, which is something Lee wasn't very happy with. But we brew an English bitter, we brew lagers, we brew all different types of beers now, and the hop selections we use, hop varieties we use, are usually quite expensive. So the American ones have been grown over there, they've been vacuum packed, brought across the UK. They're not quite as cheap as Fuggles or East Kent Gold and so some of the UK varieties. So we've got to get the right hops for the right type of beer. And when a beer like this really deserves some American hops, which are punchy, you get some nice dank flavours from there. The hops are actually a distant cousin of cannabis. So that's part of the reason we went to America and sniffed loads of hops. We didn't smoke them, but we enjoyed the time out there. And it's just interesting to see what different flavour characteristics make their way into the final beer. The hops themselves smell and don't taste them, but smell very, very different to the flavours that come through in the final beer. The reason I say don't taste them is because they are usually very, very bitter. One of the other reasons we use hops in beer is to get the bitterness on the back of the tongue. American pale ales in particular, and this style is supposed to have a bit of bitterness. So some of the more modern, hazy New England style beers are supposed to be really soft and easy to drink. These are supposed to have some bitterness that makes you go back and want more. Your tongue's bitter, so you need to put some more beer in your mouth, and the more you drink, it's like having salt as a snack on the bar. It makes you drink more. The bitterness makes you go back and drink more. So hopefully it's a style that you guys appreciate and like. If it's not, we're going to have a long evening because we're going to drink lots of these styles.
So within that section, Wayne said that I don't like English hops, and that is a genuine observation. I don't. English hops tend to be really kind of earthy, twiggy, I think is another description that gets used for them. And there's a very good reason for that. It comes down to terroir. So again, the environmental conditions of where a hop is grown. And it's quite apt that we're talking about this on a day that is effing 33 degrees out there. Yeah, so at the minute, in the US where these hops are grown is an irrigated desert. So you're talking temperatures up to about 40 degrees, consistent water conditions all the time. So consequently, they develop a lot of the oils that create the flavour. So the oil content is the highest in the world in these hops in the US. In the UK, light intensity, not so great. Availability of water, right now, not enough. Through the autumn and winter, too goddamn much. So it means the hops don't develop in the same way. But as we're seeing in the UK now, where you've got grapes now being grown in kind of East Anglia and moving gradually upwards, it is conceivable that in our lifetimes we will have hops grown down in the east and south of the country that have that kind of American intensity, because we will at long last, it sounds like I'm wishing for it, and trust me, I'm not, I'm sweating my off here. But it is entirely possible that we will have these really kind of flavour, fruity forward hops that we get in the US grown in the UK.
So UK hop, well, hops take a long time to grow and develop. So one of the interesting things when we weren't out there, it's probably not interesting to you guys. It is for us because we're geeks. But what? Oh, I forgot to tell Pete to put the slideshow on. Yeah, sorry. One of the interesting things for us is the development process. So how do you get from most American hops were actually, their ancestors are UK grown hops. The UK hops were taken over there, grown in a nice warm climate, and they developed these flavour characteristics we love now. They've then bred hops and developed different varieties that are getting more and more popular. So I'm guessing most people have heard the hop Citra because there's a big beer, well, lots of beers in the UK that are based on Citra hops now. Oakham Citra is one of the popular ones. So these hop varieties are developed and bred to try and get the characteristics people really like. And then the hop farmers have to then try and get maximum acreage and yield because it takes years to develop these crops. And then once you've got them set in your field, you can't just change them next season. You've got to stick to the variety you're growing, and you're going to have that variety for the next 10 years. So you've got to look at what the demand is for those hops. You've got to then adjust slowly and patiently. So hops are a very difficult thing to grow, which is why the UK has just stuck to, for a lot of years, just stuck to what they know and what they do well, which are the hops that are really good in like English bitters or English style beers. But over the last few years in particular, we're seeing more and more English hops appearing on the market that are actually very, very close to their American cousins, that are tasting really, really good. The biggest challenge that we've got is there's not many farms growing those hops in the UK, and because there's not many farms growing them, they're expensive. So are you going to pay the same pound per tonne of hops for a UK grown almost as good hop, or are you going to pay probably a cheaper price for the American grown variety we can get into the country that everyone already recognises?
And the scale of American production, as with anything American, is unbelievable. There is a hop farm in the US called Crosby Farms, and that one farm is bigger than the entire UK's hop production. One farm.
So just excuse me one second, I'm not going to the toilet, which I'm normally running off the toilet first thing, but I'm just going to get that screen locked back in so Pete can change it.
For those of you joining us for the first time, many of our online guys run a thing called the sweepstakes, which is usually who's going to go to the loo first, which is a completely pointless contest because it's always him.
I'll just take my password off for...
So we'll see tonight, anyway. Hop development is most akin to, say, the pharmaceutical industry, where it can take 15 years to go from something that's a prospect to something that is grown in sufficient quantity to be commercially sold. And every year they are planting about 15,000 new types. And then they go through trials. So do they grow well in the field? Are they disease resistant? And then eventually they get through all of that, and it's, well, do the brewers like to brew with them? Because there's no point having this fantastic thing that grows lots in the field if nobody wants to work with it. And eventually, 15 years down the line, you maybe get 1 or 2 varieties a year that actually go on and become commercially brewed. So, yeah. Anyway, we are moving on to beer number 2 now, which means I need to empty my glass.
That's a classic. So while I was fixing the screen, I was trying to sort a bit of food out for when the stream finishes, and I forgot that I had my mic on. So people at home are wondering what I'm talking about food for when I wasn't.
Well done.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, it beats when you took it to the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. So probably, if anyone like Pete's listening, Lee will probably want some food by the time the stream finishes as well. So if we can pre-order some of that as well.
Just pick for me.
So what did I miss? What did you talk about? You got to Lagerita.
Yeah, we're just starting to talk about Lagerita now. So Lagerita now, second beer here. Might notice the artwork's a little bit different to how we normally do our artwork, if you are familiar with our artwork. And that's because this is a collaboration beer. It's brewed with a tequila ready-to-drink company, so they specialize in making pre-mixed, almost exclusively margaritas. So they do like spicy margaritas, Tommy's margaritas, and this is based on a Tommy's margarita. And a Tommy's margarita, as I have now learned, is a bit of a stripped back margarita in that it's just tequila, lime, and agave syrup, which is a kind of cactus-derived sugar syrup that's really, really sweet. And then we've put those flavorings into a lager, and what you end up with is something, I think it's a bit like, do you know they're like Desperado? I think it's very much like that. And we had the girls from Pimente come and join us in York, and we had this base lager, and it's our Osprey. We have a lager over there called Viking, which is very similar. It's made with rice, it's made with maize. It's done to the style of an American light lager. So think like your Coors or your Budweiser. It's supposed to be that really easy drinking, really pale, really light thing. Perfect on this kind of day. And into that, we've infused the flavors of tequila and lime and agave. And the way in which we've done that is we can't put tequila in your beer. If we put tequila in your beer, that's kind of called rectifying, and that means our taxation rates changes to that of a spirit.
You can put tequila in your beer if you want to go get a tequila and then.
So you can do that.
But we can't do that.
So we're not allowed to do that. So we have to take a tequila flavouring and we put that into your beer. We have put lime in there though, so that's where your lime character is coming from. And then what we've also done is we've put some coriander seeds in there, and the coriander seeds give this kind of back flavour, which is almost a little bit woody in nature, which is a bit like the finishing flavour of tequila. So we worked with the girls that came to York, and we did various different ratios of these flavours until we conceived of something that they thought was most representative of their cocktail. And we serve their ready-to-drink cocktails in our bars. Do we have them in this one?
Yeah, we've got them in cans over here. Interestingly, the ladies who started Pimente crowdfunded. They started it yesterday. They've raised 100 grand in a day, so they're expanding. So they've got a huge following. They've just picked up listings in a lot of the major supermarkets. And one of the side benefits of working with the girls is that a lot of the supermarkets are now really interested in putting this in their shelves when it launches next year. So I really like this. It's definitely a beer for this type of weather, and this is it raises for me a bit of an interesting point between canned beer and draft beer. So obviously during COVID we had to drink whatever we could get at home. We couldn't go to the bar and drink draft product anymore, cask or keg or whatever the variety was. And unless you had a bar in your home, which a lot of people built during COVID, you lost the access to that type of product. So for me, in my head psychologically, I always think of canned beer as a product I drink at home, and draft beer as something I drink when I'm out socialising. And even though it's exactly the same liquid that's in our tank, that goes into the can, that goes into the keg, that goes to the landlord, to me it tastes different for a few different reasons. And one of them, circling back to temperature, is you draft products in a cellar that's kept at the right temperature, and there's a lot of that product. So by the time it gets in your glass, it's still pretty cold. You can, unless you drink it quickly, can warm up quite quickly. So the flavour variations change a lot, which is why a lot of people have ice buckets or whatever when they're drinking canned beer, or they drink smaller cans. So it is interesting to compare and contrast, even though it's the same product at the start, how it tastes differently to you, not just because of the temperature and the other aspects of that, but also your own personal perception of drinking that product a can or on
There is a simple solution. Drink your beer quicker.
Drink quicker. Don't let it warm up. Exactly.
That's not a problem.
One of the other side benefits of being in our industry, and especially with the move more towards hospitality, and it's something that's quite relevant to Gould in particular, is we've developed a relationship with a Czech brewery called Budvar. So they flew us out to Czech Republic a few months ago, and we got to go to their huge brewery in Budweiser.
Could I just interrupt you to give it Český Budvar? Yeah. To give you an idea of the scale of this place. So in one day, they produce the same amount of beer that we do in a year. In one day.
Crazy. But yeah, it's amazing. And the reason why I said it's a bit relevant is because we're actually launching Budvar on this bar here next week. So I don't know if Sean knows I was going to tell you that, but it's a bit of a sneak preview. So we're bringing that onto the bar next week, which is going to be pretty exciting. But when we went across there, it was interesting talking to how passionate they are. They only have 3 products. They have their main
4.
Yeah, their pale beer, their dark beer, their alcohol-free. What's the 4th? throw me now.
Pardal.
Oh, Pardal, sorry,
Yeah.
their lower strength version. So they only have a limited number of products, but they serve it really, really well. And we went to a bar and they have a water bath. So they have cold water, they have the glasses in the cold water bath. They bring them out, they clean them, they serve you it. I was talking more about the benefits of the water bath, and in particular said, if you go to a nice restaurant and you get your food, they give you it on a warm plate, and they give it on a warm plate for a reason, because they've cooked that food, they want it to stay that temperature while you're enjoying it. And it's very similar with the beer. There's no point putting a nice beer at the right temperature into a warm glass where it'll then the temperature will change, and the beer you drink changes from what they were intended to do it at. So it was quite interesting to hear that, and to hear lots of different elements of what they do that's different to what we do in the UK that they're passionate about. But one of the things I've noticed already from pouring my can into my glass is that bit's warmed up. So my second glass will be a bit better because it'll be a bit cooler from the first glass. But like Lee said, I just need to drink quicker, I think.
But their production level was absolutely crazy. We went in this one room and they had a tank, and I think it was about 5 meters wide, and it went back something like 12 meters. And there was 9 of them on this floor, and there was 3 floors. Absolutely ridiculous volume. And we were being shown around by this tour guide, and we got the VIP tour. And this tour guide is one of their former brewers. And it turns out he's a bit of an alcoholic / speed drinker. And we'd be going to this tank and he'd go, you need to try this. And then we'd try that. And then 5 minutes later, now we're having that. It's like, I've got half a glass left. So you then have to see that off, and then he'd take it. And then we went to go and drink. We got to go to the special cellar where they have their reserva. So this stuff's like 7.5%. It's aged for like 7 or 8 months. And he had 3 different types of it. And he insisted on us trying all 3, but we had about 15 minutes to do it.
And then the other bit is the cellar is a different part of the factory. Very, very cold building. All of the rooms are all kept at cold temperatures, and then the vessels aren't refrigerated. They're just refrigerated by the fact they're in a cold room. There's no toilets in the cellar, he said to us. Like, okay, sure. So we'll go in, we'll have a couple of beers, and then we'll go somewhere else where we can go to the toilet. And then he's like asking us to have more and more beers, and we're enjoying it. He's like, but once you leave, you can't come back. So we're like stood cross-legged, drinking as much as you can. We're like, I'm not going to the toilet yet. Just give us a bit more.
No, quite literally. I mean, you want to milk it while you're there, don't you? So,
yeah.
But there was a few people who had to give in and head off to the toilet. Harry was one of them, wasn't he, Paul?
Yeah.
So yeah, Harry, one of them. Did you go as well? Yeah, I like. Yeah. Paul runs our retail estate over there. He was one of the weak ones that gave in.
It's a great experience. So if you ever get a chance, I'd definitely highly recommend it. They've got a huge part of their business is the tourism. So they show you the full brewery tour. You might not get to drink all 3 7.5% as on the normal tour, but I'm sure if you ask him and slip him a tip, he'll let you.
But as Wayne's kind of hinted at with the water bath and the glass, their attention to quality, to making sure everything is as perfect as it can be with that beer, is incredible. Yeah. Every single lager aged a minimum of 3 months. Well, our Golden Eagle, we do 6 weeks. And that is considerably more than most of the UK market. And they're doing a minimum of 3 months on everything. So hence why they have to have so many vessels to be able to do that.
So one of the things not a lot of people who drink lager know is that it's called lager because the process in getting the beer matured and tasting how it is called lagering. So you brew a beer as normal, and then you need to ferment it at cold temperature. Fermentation is when the sugar in the initial product converts to alcohol. And for us, it typically takes a week to 10 days, and then the beer, stays in tank for a little bit longer. So typically for us, for a normal beer like the first one we drank, about 2 weeks from brew day to packaging day. A lager needs to be fermented at a much lower temperature, which means it takes much longer to convert that sugar to alcohol because the yeast, which is the live product in there that does all the work, is much slower to work at those low temperatures. So the lagering process takes much longer, which is why it's harder for small breweries to do because you can't give up your tank for that long. We only have a certain number of tanks we can use when we're brewing beer, and we need to turn those tanks around relatively quickly to try and be profitable and keep the business going how we'd like it to go. So if we give up a tank for 6 weeks for lagering, it means we could have brewed 3 other beers and sold 3 times as much in that time. And lager's usually one of the cheaper products you have because there's not much that goes into it in ingredients. So it's a double whammy. You have to it's to stay in tank for 3 times the length of time, and you can't sell it for as much as you sell one of your other products. But guess what? People drink lager at about 4 or 5 times the volume that they drink of other beers. So it is worth the effort to get it to do a good lager, and because your customers will appreciate it, they'll buy more of it, and it will quickly become one of your biggest selling product lines. So I didn't mention this earlier, but we've got James from Gull Vikings in the corner, and he kindly worked with us on the Vikings lager that we sell in Gull. And it's actually our biggest selling product by a long way because it's a lager, it sells well because it's a nice refreshing drink. It's got the Vikings Association, everyone wants to support the local rugby club. And it's a good product because we put time and effort into that product to make sure it's matured for long enough to taste, hopefully, as good as a mainstream commercial lager. But it's difficult because the challenges on the margin are so tight on those type of products. But we like to think we do it well, and looking at the numbers of how much people drink that beer, I think they do.
So when you produce that, what about low alcohol and zero alcohol? Does that cost you more to produce?
So a question from the audience about does low alcohol and zero alcohol cost more to produce? We've got to Lee.
So no, because there's very little fermentation that's going to take place. So that part of the process is really, really quick. It's a very hard science, though. It's not an easy thing to produce. I mean, those of us that have been drinking for a couple of decades will remember the likes of Caliber, which was absolute crap, quite frankly. You'd rather have a cup of tea if you're going to go for a no alcohol option than drink that stuff. Whereas these days, the technology, the approach to low alcohol production has massively moved on. So now we have yeasts that are not very good at their job. So you can put it into a fermentation in the same way, and it'll go, and it'll produce that tiny bit of alcohol and give up. But unfortunately, that means there's a lot of sugar in there, so they're kind of risky beers. Or you can produce it the way we do, which is you make it in a way where you're extracting the sugar from your barley, but you're doing it in a way where you're bringing in big chain sugars. So you're making it so it's kind of sugary, but it's mostly unfermentable. So that yeast isn't going to digest most of it, it's only going to digest part of it and turn it into sugar. Or the very pinnacle of low alcohol production is what the likes of your Guinness guys are going to be doing, which is you make Guinness and you buy some technology that's about £1 million minimum, and it's this fancy membranes where you push your beer through the membrane and the alcohol stays one side and everything else goes the other side. And that's why, and I'm going to admit this, Guinness Zero's awesome. Guinness Zero is awesome because it is Guinness.
Yeah,
all they did was they made Guinness, they took the alcohol out. So you are drinking exactly the same product. But so for those of us that make 1, 2 low alcohol products, we're going to spend £1 million on that kind of technology? No. So we have to make some compromises. But at the same time, I still think we make some exceptional low alcohol products, certainly superior to any of that Caliber crap you used to drink.
Because one of the biggest challenges, if as soon as you remove alcohol, there's the body and the mouthfeel of the beer is usually, an alcohol-free product is usually very, very different. It usually tastes watery. So it tastes like you're drinking a bit of flavoured water as opposed to drinking a beer which has that slight viscosity, a little bit more flavour, taste, all those different elements that change.
Yes.
So the difficult thing is we have to add more ingredients to an alcohol-free beer than we would to an alcohol beer. So it's usually costs, an ingredient cost anyway, it costs more than a regular beer. Thankfully, we don't pay duty, tax to the government on alcohol-free. So that's where we make a bit of a saving, but then it still takes the same amount of time in tank. So all the elements to make an alcohol-free beer are still there to make it expensive. We save on duty, save on tax, pay more ingredients, and lo and behold, by the time you get the product on the bar, it's not that much cheaper than an alcohol product. But hopefully it tastes, and you agree, it tastes miles better than the alcohol-free alternatives we used to get.
Yeah, if you're wanting to make a low alcohol lager, for example, so much of the flavour is associated with the fermentation and then that period that you're leaving it to lager. And by the way, just an add-on to what Wayne was saying earlier, The German word for store, as in to store something, is lager. That's why lagers are called lager, because they're stored for a period before they're served. So if you're looking to make, say, a low alcohol lager, then you're not going to have that fermentation that goes on for 2 weeks and develops all these different flavor characteristics. So you end up, you end up having to buy in these sophisticated but expensive compounds that replicate the crispness of the lager or replicate the dryness that you're going to get with the lager. And also during fermentation, something called glycerol is formed. And glycerol and alcohol itself contribute to the thickness of the beer. So if you don't have the glycerol, you don't have the alcohol, the product feels really thin. So even if you could make it taste the same, it's not going to feel the same, and you're going to know it's not right. So therefore you have to do things to make it not be that thin, so it comes across like a normal beer. So the most scientific thing you probably do in a brewery is producing a low alcohol beer. Some of it is verging on like chemical engineering, really. That's why you're getting into that kind of territory with what you're doing with some of these beers.
One of the interesting but very unresponsible or irresponsible stories I heard was that a guy was out with his mate drinking, or his mate wasn't drinking, so he was ordering alcohol-free Guinness. So every time his mate went to the bar, he was buying him real Guinness. Yeah. So at the end of the night, he's like, I love this alcohol-free Guinness. I still feel a little bit tipsy from it. He's like, why haven't you been drinking Guinness all night? He's like, what? And he was alternating. He was alternating between alcohol-free Guinness and Guinness, and he didn't notice it because they've done such a good job with the alcohol-free. Obviously, very irresponsible, and don't recommend that.
That sounds like a story that the Guinness marketing people have planted out there.
Probably.
But anyway, you never know.
So we are a little bit off our timings because of the delay at the start. Yeah. So I do think we've got a little bit more time to finish the Lagerita off, because otherwise I'm triple parked.
And what we haven't done, and we usually do at the end of each beer, and we've done 2 beers now, is throw it out to questions, whether that be in the audience or in the room. So does anybody have any questions that haven't been answered so far?
Obvious field, did you always from the start have a lager on tap, or was it converted to if you like sold out, were you quite happy with that?
It's a very good question. So we've been asked, as people who are very serious about beer, love our beer, have we always had a lager on tap? Did we always make a lager? So in our early days, we were buying in another brewery's lager. It was still a locally produced one, and we had that dispensed in our bar. But then we were selling rather a lot of that, and us also being businessmen as well as brewers thought it's a bit crazy that we're buying someone else's. We should be making this. So we did try to make a lager when we were in our original site in York, but the water there is really hard, and the most important part of any beer is water. 95% of what I'm drinking there is water. So you can talk all you want about malt and all you want about hops. The biggest thing that's going to play a part in there is water. And if we think about it, the thing that has kind of dictated what lagers are, or people's perception of lager, is the Pilsner. And that comes originally from an area of the former Czech Republic called Pilsen. And there they have water that's very special. It has almost no mineral content whatsoever. So no calcium, no magnesium. It's basically a blank page on which they can print. So therefore you can take these lovely delicate hops that don't have big character, you can take your nice lager malt and you can produce something that's really clean, really crisp, where the calcium isn't perceivable. The other minerals in the water isn't perceivable. All you're getting is those key raw ingredients. And if you try and take normal kind of like municipal water like we would have out of the tap in York, our water's really hard. It's got loads of carbonate in it. It's why you have to descale your kettle very frequently in York. We've got really, really hard water. That is terrible water for trying to make lager with, or to try to make pale beer with. So we did try to make lagers in our original site, and they were, if I'm generous, okay. But then when we moved to the new site and we invested £2 million in the big new factory, a big part of that money went into something called reverse osmosis. And reverse osmosis is a form of water purification technology, which is funnily enough, almost identical to what I was talking about with the alcohol technology, where you have a membrane and you use a pump. And so if I step back, osmosis is you have a membrane there, you have a salty liquid there, a non-salty liquid there. It will try and equalize. So some of the salt will move there until the point at which they hit equilibrium. That's osmosis. Reverse osmosis is, well, what if I use a pump to make that salt go the other way? So I'm ejecting the salt out of the water. So we have the technology that does that. So we get all the salt removed out of the water. We end up with this water that's a blank canvas that we can then paint on. And then we build up using salts, gypsum,
We strip
calcium
salt out,
chloride.
we add it back in, which it sounds crazy, but it's better to start with a blank canvas than to try and mess with what you've already got. Especially as the more you add in, the more complicated it gets. So strip everything out, add a little bit of it back in,
And every single beer that we have has a unique salt profile. So we design the water profile first, and then it's the beer that sits on top of that. So something like that first beer that we had there, where you're wanting to accentuate bitterness, you need sulfate to be the prominent character in that. So in the UK...
too geeky now, Lee. Come on.
No, but in the UK, the biggest brewing area, where's most beer produced in the UK?
Yeah.
Burton-on-Trent. There's a reason for that, because the water there is special, in the same way that it's special in Pilsen. They have really high sulfate there, and that sulfate has the ability to enhance hop character, and it really accentuates bitterness in a beer. So if you think about the very original English IPAs, which were really bitter, it was the first time they'd put hops in decent volume into beer, and they had the perfect water there. So then, rather than trying to perfect the water elsewhere, they just built the breweries where the perfect water was. And final point I'm going to say on water is, you may have noticed in history that Guinness has tried to build factories elsewhere. They've tried to produce the Guinness elsewhere, and it hasn't worked because they can't replicate the Liffey water that they have in Ireland. So almost all of the world's Guinness now comes still from Dublin, with one exception. Anyone know?
Nigeria.
Except Nigeria, where they do the export Guinness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice, the export one. So yeah, in short answer,
Sorry, I don't do short answers.
yes, we have always made a lager. But yeah, what we ended up doing with our original brewery in York City Centre is we used to brew what's called a Heller's lager. So it's a bit more malt forward than a Pilsner or a American style lager, because that style suited the fact that with the water we have and what we could brew with. When we first started in the brewery, we had a lot of success with our dark beers, and the reason we had success with our dark beers was because the water profile in York suits dark styles. So like in water in Dublin, water in London suits dark styles of beer. Our water does especially. So it was great when we started growing as a business and everyone wanted pale beer, and our water really didn't suit that style. But we had to adapt and change the way we brewed to try and to meet the demand. And then when we had the opportunity to move to the new site, it was one of the most important parts of our investment was to get the reverse osmosis kit, because the volume of beer we sell is usually pale. So stouts taste great, people really appreciate them, but unless it's Guinness, people aren't buying huge volume of it, unfortunately. So yeah, pale beer is great for us, and now that we can do, hopefully you'll agree, pale beer pretty well, that's where our time and energy goes.
So, speaking of which, you have a pale beer to now talk about, which you don't have in your glass yet. So I'll just do the quick intro. So this beer is called Juice Campbell versus the Army of Dankness. So we have a history of coming up with really good names for beers, and we did not come up with this name.
Yeah.
This is one of our customers. So one of our customers in York, he used to pester us all the time. I've got an idea, Lee. I've got an idea. Yeah. And most of the time, he'd be like, all right, whatever. But he came up with this gem. He said, you need to do a hazy beer, and you need to call it Juice Campbell versus the Army of Dankness. So everyone get the reference? So there's a film called The Evil Dead, and then there's 3 films, and the third film is called The Army of Darkness. So I just had to... memory fart there. So it's called The Army of Darkness. It's a really cool film. And the star of those trilogy of films is a guy called Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, he does a lot of American horror films.
Yeah.
He's a cheesy, fun actor from the largely the 80s, and we got him to tweet about our beer, which is great. So every time we get a celebrity endorsement, we do. So it was quite a good one for us. And there's a lot more than the 3 films now. I think they're up to 6.
Well, and there was a follow-up TV series.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Called Ash versus the Evil Dead, which is cheesy as hell, but really entertaining. So if you're into your 80s horror, where it was a bit about comedy and very much about real life special effects, rather than all this digital stuff they rely on these days, it's that kind of thing. Yeah.
So we brewed this beer quite a few times now over the last few years. Started off at 7.2%, but it didn't quite work, so we had to dial it back to 6.66. We hit that ABV exactly every single time we brew it.
So before you go on, I totally lied earlier. He is not going to be the one that goes first.
Don't take the mic. He's remembered not to take the mic.
I'm leaving the mic there. It's backfire. I'll be 2 minutes.
So yeah, we brewed this beer quite a lot over the years, and we refined the recipe based on hop availability. So we've talked a lot about hops so far. When we started as a brewery, there were lots of breweries in the UK importing American hops, but there wasn't that much availability for the UK breweries. So when we started, Brewdog were huge still. We still are huge, but Brewdog were doing a lot, and they were basically monopolising the UK's imported American hops. We couldn't get hold of any of what we now deem as core hops like Citra, Mosaic. We couldn't get a look in on those. So we had to adapt our recipes and come up with lesser well-known American varieties, blend them together to try and replicate those punchy flavours from the well-known varieties. And we did a pretty good job. And then over the years, we evolved the recipes to try and build in the more well-known hops once we could get them. And that's kind of the same for this beer. We brewed it originally with quite a different hop lineup to what we do now. But as we've got access to better hops or better varieties of hops that people recognise, we try and build them into the original beers and try and adapt them. So this one's got a hop in it called Amarillo, and it's a hop I really, really like. You get some orange style flavours coming through from that, but it's just something that I think works quite well in this style of beer. We've used Citra, again a hop we couldn't get crazy. We couldn't get that 10 years ago. Now it's one of the most widely contracted hops in the UK. And then we've got a newer hop called Eclipse. So Eclipse, we should have launched this yesterday, shouldn't we? But Eclipse is, you're getting orangey flavours as well, mandarin and orange from that. And then we've got one of my favourites, which is Mosaic. Mosaic's just a really nice, easygoing beer. It works well in this style of beer, the hazy beer, but also it works well in the first style we had earlier, the American style pale ale. So it's pretty interesting and flexible hop. Yeah, one of the other bits I probably should have mentioned, or we should have mentioned, but we haven't, is the look of this beer is very, very different to anything we've tried so far. So we start with an American pale ale, which you've got the transparency. You can see a lot through that beer. We moved on to a lager, which is really clear and transparent. Probably the wrong word, transparent. And then we moved on to this, which is a New England IPA. So New England IPA really peaked in popularity about 6 years. Well, peaked. It hasn't peaked yet, but it really started getting more mainstream in the UK 6 years ago, 7 years maybe, six years ago. And the more and more breweries adopted it, the more and more people, that's all people expect now when it comes to craft beer, because it's just really easy drinking. There's very, very little bitterness in these style of beers. They're just softer and nice on the mouthfeel. But I find them for me, there's a little bit more residual sweetness than some of the other styles. So they're not my favourite style of beer, but they are, if I put my accountant head on, because they sell so well. Everyone loves this style of beer. We sell loads of them, so I've just got to hold my hands up and say, I obviously don't know anything about beer, so I'll just let people buy what they like. And
I mean, you said earlier Juice Forsyth was our best-selling beer, and it was for a period, but then it's now been delisted from some of those supermarkets that Wayne referenced, and therefore Coney has now come to the forefront. So Coney is now our best-selling beer, which is our sessionable strength. It's 4.5% hazy beer, so it's everything that Wayne's just described there. And These days, these are kind of like the gateway beers. So when we were starting out drinking, I mean, I'm going back 25 years. How old am I now? Oh, no, more than that.
25 years, he wishes.
That's more than that.
This
yeah.
young whippersnapper on my left.
Okay. A few decades ago, at that point in time, beer was bitter. It was all bitter. So if it was your first time drinking beer, it's a bit of a big step. Whereas these days, you have these things where that's probably got more in common with a glass of orange juice than it has with the bitter beers that we started out drinking. It's that accessible, it's that easy to drink. It's fruity, it's soft, there's no bitterness.
Yeah, and that's when I talked about the hops earlier, I was just listing fruits, because that's the association with a lot of those hops, and that's what we're trying to bring into these beers, to try and make them fruity, which is quite interesting, because when people try them for the first time, they ask what fruits we've put in them, and we don't. In this beer, we don't. In Juice Forsyth, we do, but that's different altogether. Usually, it's citrus fruit focused, lots of different flavours from those type of hops that are coming through, and they're prominent on the nose, which we did the experiment on earlier to try and explain why that happens. But they're quite soft, easy drinking, and usually a bit fruity, and that appeals to a lot of drinkers nowadays. It's very different to when I used to pinch my dad's pint of bitter, John Smith's in particular, and drink that, which is very twiggy, but he still loves it. My dad works for us, and he gets free beer, but he still drinks John Smith's by the crate.
You almost won't drink anything that we produce.
Oh, we do an English bitter. He loves that, and then a few other bits.
Yeah.
He's probably watching actually now. He's going to give me a kick tomorrow.
Did you tell him the ABV of this beer?
Yeah, 6.66.
Don't know.
Sean, I was going to say, can we get some mood spotlighting on? Get the what colour do you want?
That's fine. Let's not mess around with the colour.
We've got stage lights. We've got to get the stage lights on.
What?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't think we need that.
You've got to get the lighting on.
I have a face for radio. I don't need lighting.
So yeah, sorry, got a bit distracted then.
So, and have you said that we evolve this recipe each year?
Yeah.
Well, we don't brew this every year. It's a brand where we love the artwork. We love the name. So every now and again we bring this back. But history has taught us we can't bring the same thing back every year. Because just because we've sold out of it doesn't mean that off license up the road didn't have it 9 months later. So we only bring things back at earliest maybe every 2 years. So this is making a reappearance after a hiatus. And therefore people kind of forget what we did with the recipe last time. So we take this as an opportunity to experiment. And every time we try and do it a little bit better than we did before.
There we go.
Oh,
now
dear.
we've got some mood lighting going on. Bit of maroon.
Welcome to the Jazz Club.
Everyone loves a red light. So what Lee didn't mention there is one of the reasons that we evolved the way.
Just pick one and stick with it.
We evolved the release schedule of beers is because when we first started, we used to bring maybe 4 or 5 special beers out a year, and we had our core range that we focused on. The 4 or 5 specials were when we got a chance to brew them. And then we kept trying to brew more and more specials, but we just couldn't always fit them in the schedule. And then when lockdown hit, he got his handcuffs taken off. Because the other thing that also happened was Lee were like, I really want to brew this crazy 8% beer that's so-and-so and so-and-so. I was like, amazing, but how do we sell that to a pub? We can sell it to people at home, but we can't sell it to a pub because how do they sell it to their customer? And we had to be quite restricted and reserved in what we were brewing until lockdown hit. And when lockdown hit and we realised we weren't going to lose the business and furlough and all those things were actual reality, we were like, well, actually, we've got all this brewery kit, we've got a canning line, let's brew the stuff we always wanted to brew but couldn't and see if people want to buy it. And it went nuts, didn't it?
It's interesting. I think that period of the lockdowns, COVID, has had a long-lasting effect on UK drinking culture. So for a start, people started to build their bars at home, etc., and it's taken people away from drinking in places like this. And also, people started to drink some really strong stuff through that period. It was well, I don't need to see the boss in the morning. I don't need to deal with my usual commute.
calls.
So I am going to drink that stronger thing because I can crawl to my bed. It doesn't matter. So, like Wayne was saying there, we used to do stuff that was this strong maybe every 3 months, every 6 months. We wouldn't do a lot of it because it didn't sell, because people maybe were living in fear of their boss the following morning. But through that period, we started producing pale beer that was in excess of 8%, and we were maybe doing one a week. And people were buying it up at the rate that we were selling it. But then the long-lasting effect of that is, I think everybody got a little bit guilty afterwards, and now people don't go and drink those kind of things so much, and there's been a real big migration towards drinking more sessionable beer. So people are now drinking, once again, and was always the British culture, they're drinking stuff that's more around the kind of 4% mark, once again, and drinking it in volume. And I am also within that.
Yeah, we get a lot of, so people who are watching at home on our YouTube channel and stuff like that, they're some of our long-term subscribers who are always like, come on, bring more strong beers out again. And we would, because they will buy it, and we do as much as we can. But not a lot of other people still drink those strong beers. And the UK government really kicked us because when all this was going on, they changed the way that taxation works on beer. And where we used to, as a small brewery, we used to pay a discounted level of tax on all the beer we produced. They took that benefit away from it. As soon as it went above 7.5%, we started paying high duty, and then they changed it again. It became anything above 8.5%. And it really, really killed that part of our business. So anytime we brewed anything above 8.5%, it added at least £1 in extra tax per can of beer to the end customer. And I was like, well, you can have something that's 8.49%, which tastes amazing, and is £1 a can cheaper just because it's that, then something that's 8.51%. Yeah. Absolutely crazy.
And these kind of ones, these really big, strong things, it was up to about £2 it added to a can overnight. And you as the consumer, you don't see the government messaging, you just see Brew York putting up their price of beer by £2 a can. £2 that we are not taking a single penny from. Every penny of that is going to the government. We are the third highest alcohol tax country in the world. There's only 2 other people pay more alcohol tax than we do. Sweden's one of them, I can't remember the other one.
It's a crazy stat, and when you look at the actual cost of producing beer, so when we've mentioned quite a lot of them already, so you've got your malt, which is your main sugar source, you've got your hops, which is the bitterness and the fruit addition, or the flavour addition, you've got water, which is not as cheap as you think it is, and then you've got yeast, which is very expensive. So you've got those 4 main ingredients. They're a big chunk of what we spend on beer. Labour, packaging, all those other elements. They all form such an insignificant part of the total cost of a beer, because the tax we pay is 1/3 of all the cost of the beer we make. So, and that's before you factor in VAT and all the other extra taxes, VAT, income tax.
And then national insurance and all those other forms of taxes we pay to employees. So by the time you add it all up, 50% of all of our revenue is going to the government.
So we won't get too on our pedestals and talk too much about tax, but it's frustrating for us as a brewery that we want to make beer as accessible as possible. We want to put it out and make it as affordable, and then there's all these taxes that are in place that stop it happening because people want vape shops on streets and all the rest.
I mean, you said we're not going to get political, but I'm going to conclude by saying one thing.
I know.
So, 1/3 of our revenue to tax to the government. Online gambling companies, how much?
Oh, maybe like
1.5%.
Yeah. So they make all the money and don't
Really?
pay any tax. So.
How's that fair?
So yeah, we'll get off our high horses for a second. We'll talk a little bit more about the fun stuff like beer. What out of interest in audience participation here, a bit of a poll. If you can remember back to the first beer, the classical American Pale Ale versus the New England IPA, who preferred the first beer? Show of hands. Few. And who prefers Juice Campbell?
Which definitely this one.
It's definitely reflective, and it's even if you park the style to one side, there's different hop combination, other things that'll make a difference. But in general, that's the type of reaction we see as a whole to hazy beers versus the clear beers. and the hopping styles we use.
And it's also how you react to an individual beer, because
It's getting stronger as well. We've had a few.
the first beer, that's my preferred style. This is not my preferred style, but all the same, I prefer this beer to the first beer.
Tell you what,
So-
I prefer the next beer.
Yeah.
It's definitely one where we should do the fly. Do you want to just demonstrate how to do the flyby?
The drive-by it's called. Anyway. Oh, so flyby, you must have known.
I knew that, that's why I said flyby, yeah.
Sorry, for those online, there was Wayne was saying we should do the flyby, referencing the drive-by that we talked about earlier, but he said it to a guy that's a former RAF pilot, so it was kind of appropriate.
Honestly, I sensed it.
Yeah.
Could see you were a tail gunner.
Right, so I think with the last beer we failed to do your bar update, so maybe we combine the two together with this section.
Yeah, a bit of a brief update on our bars. So I mentioned earlier we're up to 10 venues now. We launched Ghoul here, where we are now, the Market Hall, in April this year, and everyone keeps asking where next. What are our plans? And our plans are consolidation. We're not opening any bars right now. We're trying to focus on the 10 we've got and make sure they're operating as efficiently and effectively as possible. So the main focus of the team, and Andrew's somewhere in the background, is getting the brand consistency rolled out across them all. So as we've grown as a business, we were hand building everything in our original York tap room while we're waiting for our brewery kit to arrive. We've spent a little bit of money on it since then to bring it a little bit more up to date, but we haven't done the same to all of our venues. We want to make sure all the venues reflect what we think one of our tap rooms or our Brew Plus venues or our Inns with Character should look and feel like. So there's a bit of catching up and focusing on them, because while we were growing and we were adding all these extra venues, some of the guys fed back that we were neglecting the venues a little bit, which we agree with. So last week we finished refurbishing the exterior of our bar in Pocklington. So we've redone all the signage, redecorated it, and we're going to be doing the same thing across the venues. We're just trying to get a bit more consistency running, and then at the same time we're visiting opportunities for next year and beyond. We've got some great, really big opportunities coming up, but they won't launch for at least another year. So we've had a fun day trip out today to go look at one of them, but I can't tell you any more than that until I've had a drink later. So we won't be revealing much more, but yeah, really, really good opportunity that came to us on the back of the Ghoul Market Hall.
Yeah, and I would say, you said we're not going to politicise this, but part of the reason for our consolidation is, and you'll hear this in the news I'm sure all the time, our existing government is not very small business friendly. They've made our lives incredibly difficult. The money that we might perhaps have been putting into growth, we have to put into sustaining our position and, as Wayne has said, making the best of what we have. So we hope in time that will change, but for the next 3 years we still have that government. So we need to think about protecting what we have rather than trying to grow what we have. Yeah.
Audience question?
The question there is, because obviously here we have the Ghoul side. Do all of your pubs have a specific beer for them, and does that not cost a lot to produce it?
So it is a challenge for us. So especially when we're launching.
Repeat the question.
Sorry, yeah. The question was at Ghoul we have Ghoul Tide. We also have Viking Lager. So, and does it cost us a lot? And do all our other venues have the same bespoke lineup? So the answer is no. We don't do it in all the venues. When we're approaching a new market, we'll look at what we think will work well in that market and how do we engage with the local audience. So that's what we specifically wanted to do in Ghoul. We launched our bar in Carlton. Carlton's just down the road from Ghoul for anyone in the audience, the live audience who doesn't know what that is.
I feel they might know what that is.
This time last year, and again when we launched there, we were focused very much on working with the towers, Carlton Towers, to try and find products that would work with the local audience, because it's a new market for us. And hopefully, because of our supermarket presence and our other, we sell a lot of beer to other pubs, we hope that people have heard of Brew York, but we know that we are just a small brewery, and if you like beer, you might have heard of us, but if you're just going out for a drink, you'll have no idea who we are. So we've got to find ways to engage with the local audience, and we've got to look at how that will work depending on where we are. And most of our other venues are very close to York or have evolved at the early stage of our growth. So we didn't put any bespoke products in there. We just went with our main range, and that's what we'd love to do everywhere. But we've got to adapt and look at what we think would work, and actually try and work with local businesses to do what's right for the area. So that's what we've done here. And it's also challenging because the different markets, we have different areas we have our venues in, also a very different market. So York's quite an affluent tourist-driven city, and what we do in our York City Centre venue, we couldn't replicate in Goole or Carlton. Likewise, we can't do the same in Leeds. They are very, very different markets. So as a small business, when we first started doing this, we would just copy paste. That's what we'll do because that's worked here, and we learn quite quickly. It doesn't work elsewhere. You've got to look at what works for that audience and try and appeal to them, and work out what's going to be the best option there. And Goole's been great for that because we've had to keep adapting what we think would work because the audience tell us, or customers, you guys tell us what you like, and we try and react from it. The stuff that I love the fact that we have a Northern Soul event here. That's just one of our busiest days of the month. It's so busy, and it's a Sunday. It's like if you guys want to suggest different events that we should do in different days of the week, we'll always try them out. It's great to see. And well, yesterday I think we had the kids rave again. Only Vikings now. We don't have nights. Yeah.
The Knights went Super League. They got a bit too expensive. So.
Well, and also like myself and Lee are big rugby fans, so we've got a business and we want to find ways to promote and market our business. Then we focus on what we like.
We do it in ways that we get entertainment out of it. Yeah. So, yeah, why not?
Go on, James. Speaking of rugby.
Yeah. Now you've admitted that Vikings Lager is your best-selling beer.
Are you going to tap us up now?
So I tell you what, Lee will play the next couple of games for you, and I'll join in later on in the season once he's been injured. So back onto the
bar update. You
bar
got
updates.
anything more you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, just thank you guys for keep supporting us. It really makes a big difference to us. I know times are tough right now. People are really watching what they're spending because of all the different uncertainties that are out there. So the more people come and support us, then the longer we can keep doing this type of thing. So we really appreciate it, and that applies to everyone at home who's joining in, buying our beer and joining these type of events. Really does make a big difference. Although we like to say we cast a big shadow. People think we're bigger than we are. We are a relatively small business still. We have a lot of venues, and we sell a fair bit of beer for a brewery, but we are still a business that works really, really hard to try and engage with the local community and do what people like. And
you're still looking at the two shareholders. we still have the company, and like Wayne was referencing there, it means we're able to adapt very quickly. And having somewhere like this, where, like in our very early days, where you can be reactive, and you can have a conversation across that bar, and you can say, well, you aren't serving what I want to drink. What I want to drink is this. And then that gets back to us, like it did in the early days. When we first launched, we didn't have a beer under 5%. So we had people coming into our bar, and they were going, tastes great, but could you go a bit easier on us? So then we created another beer that had that same kind of big hoppy character, but was a bit more sessionable. And that's still the case today. Like, if you want it, we will make it.
Feedback has been immense here as well. When it came, like, for instance, when the pizza opened, it was slices. People didn't like that, and then it became full pizzas, and they liked it.
so
Yeah, agreed.
Exactly,
Yeah.
we appreciate that.
Feedback is massive.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we like to do. So we had an audience comment that the feedback and us reacting to it is a great thing, and that's exactly what we want people to do. We want the feedback because we will react to stuff. If people tell us something, we'll try and adapt what we do to suit what people want. We're not one of those businesses who just, this is our way or the highway. We did jokingly, well, not jokingly, we did believe it. Early days when we first started a brewery, we basically said we're gonna brew beer that we want to drink. Okay, great, but how are we going to sell beer if it's just stuff that we want to drink?
And we do at the start. And now we have a sales team who, I think you said this earlier, I'll sling an idea out there and they'll go, no, can't sell that.
Think about it. You have a beer, so Cool Tide starts at £3.60. You have beers that go all the way up percentage-wise. So you can have what you want.
I think you need to come and work in marketing for us.
Beer for everybody.
Looking for a new job.
And Andrew, next time you're recruiting.
We got another audience question. You were just you didn't like the shot, so you kicked it to make it.
Yeah.
Lee was too much in shots.
I always think that your branding is really on point in that. It's really identifiable from a distance in the supermarket or wherever that is Brew York. It's a very good set of logos. Do you ever get the artist or whoever's doing your artwork saying, why don't you have this for a beer?
Interesting one. So audience feedback, again, sorry, because it sounds weird when we keep repeating it, but the question is, our artwork's quite distinctive, it stands out on a shelf, it's really, I won't, yeah. Do we ever get any feedback from the artist to say, I really like this, I think you should try this? When we started Brew York, we worked with a local company called United by Design that we set out there many years ago, before we'd even started, like years before we launched, to get the brand premise and all the rest of it sorted and agreed. And we still work with United by Design now. They actually reside on the top floor of our original our beer hall. We have a creative space there, and it's called Space, and they're one of the businesses who operate there. And United by Design still do most of the artwork for us. Our own internal marketing team help us where they can with some of the smaller release beers where we won't be selling enough of it to commercially pay for a new brand. But we use the same business as we have on day one, and they are great at giving us some input and feedback, but not normally towards beer names or beer ideas. So Owen, if you're tuning in, give us some more ideas. You're the creative, tell us. But no,
it's great that since day one we still work with the same local company over a decade now. And we made a very conscious decision in those early days that, okay, we weren't part of the vanguard of craft. I think if there was a second wave of craft, we were probably part of that. So you had some early ones out there like your Beaver Towns and your Brewdog and your Thornbridge. And then probably there was the next crest, that was us. And we knew it was competitive at that point. So we knew that we had to invest heavily, and we didn't have a huge amount of starting capital, but we knew a decent amount of that had to go into establishing the brand and making sure we had something that was iconic and recognizable on the shelf. And we got lucky. It turns out there was a local company that was more than capable of doing that, and we've stayed with them ever since.
Yeah, there was a couple of key objectives when we set out to start the business to focus on. And one of the key things was, it doesn't matter how good your product is, unless you can get it in someone's hands to enjoy it, talk about it, buy it, it's irrelevant. So you could brew the worst beer in the world, but you could market it really well and you could become the next Brewdog. Only joke. Brewdog's beer was very, very good when we started. That was it.
I think you should have said Heineken or something at the end of that, but anyway.
But no, it doesn't matter, like I say, how good your product is unless you can get it in people's hands. And one of the things we set out to do when we started our brewery was have a tap room where we could showcase the product straight away in York City Centre. So you've got a big audience from day one. Whether you can get them to come into an industrial estate to drink your beer is a different challenge. But we were brewing the beer, we wanted to showcase it and give a chance to landlords as well as customers to try it. And then we wanted to have shelf appeal or bar appeal. So we needed good branding to stand out. And there was some, like Lee mentioned already at the time, who really caught our eye. Magic Rock, I love their branding. Rich Norcross is their original creative director. Awesome stuff, and he massively influenced the look and feel we wanted when we challenged United by Design to come up with the original brand concept. So really like interesting way to try and make people drink beer, and thankfully when me and Lee did all, we had help from friends and family, but we were doing everything. We were both alternating between brewing, selling, delivering, running the bar. It was, the first few years were crazy, and not paying ourselves anything. So it was fun, but you needed to put the time and energy in to make sure people tried the product, because we knew between ourselves we had a great product, we just didn't know how to get it into people's hands. So we just worked on our
thankfully
crazy idea.
Thankfully that all worked, and this is 10 years on, and things are as good as they can be in the current climate. Anyway, we have a question over here.
Yeah, so we've got another question.
Yeah.
Just speaking about the artwork, obviously it is fantastic artwork. It would be great to see that on beer mats. However, beer mats are not something we have in the UK nowadays. In Germany, you will always get beer mats. In the UK, not so. Presumably, that's down to the economics of producing beer mats.
So question from the audience about artwork's great, but it'd be great to get that on beer mats. So Andrew, pay attention. Our marketing, the market. So the short-ish answer is that beer mats are really, really expensive, and people are cutting back on how many put out there. We don't intentionally. We just run out, and we don't get the feedback that we've run out until, and the turnaround time is so long. So I can get you, I don't know, 2,000 menus produced and delivered tomorrow. If I want beer mats, it'll take 8 weeks. So we run out, and we're like, oh shit, we haven't. Excuse my French. I'm first to swear.
I don't think you are actually.
Sugar.
I think I did that earlier.
We haven't ordered any more beer mats, and so we're then out of stock for almost 2 months until we get them in, and they're very, very expensive. So yes, we see they're expensive. We don't scrimp on it to stop people having them and use them and taking them home, but we don't want to sit on stock of it. We can't afford to just tie that much money up in beer mats and just be sat around. So we do run them down and then order more, and then it is a financial thing as well.
But I'm a big fan of the beer mat, and I think it's very much part of our drinking culture. And if I'm in a venue and they have a beer mat, not only will I put one in front of myself, I will make sure everybody that I'm sat with has one distributed in front of them, because I think you should be using them. Absolutely.
So we do have them. They're just hard.
We have another question over here.
Just as a segue into your last beer.
Oh yeah, you're
Are you egging us on here?
The last beer. We haven't even got the last beer, Joanna. We haven't even got the last beer.
Well, we've got a can and we've got that.
Oh, sorry, we have. We've got a can and we've got a rubber
We're
glass.
supposed to do that. Sorry, go on. Is there a good alternative to lactose? So,
Oh, sorry, yeah. Allergen warning. If you're lactose intolerant, you might not be able to drink this beer.
so for the benefit of those of you at home, we've been asked, is there an alternative to lactose? Now, I have to first of all explain what lactose is.
Lots of toes.
So, all the toes, yeah. So lactose is a dairy-derived sugar, comes from milk. The reason we put it in beer is because it's non-fermentable, so it remains in the final beer. It contributes sweetness, it contributes body, it gives the beer a certain creaminess. So in a thing called a milk stout and some of these big pastry stouts that you see these days, a very desirable thing. But unfortunately there are those of us that are intolerant. I am one. I opt to take it on the chin because I like drinking these things. It's perhaps more severe for yourself. But are there alternatives? So there is a thing called maltodextrin that we use in certain beers. It's what you would make candy floss from. And it's going to do the sweetness. It's unfermentable. It's not going to contribute the same body, and it's not going to give the creaminess. So it will get us part of the way there. And you can kind of combine that with oats. Oats like do a bit of creaminess, do a bit of body. So there is kind of a halfway house that gets you some of the way there. But our pursuit has always been to make the best beer that we can, and we pick the right ingredient for the right beer. And when making certain things, with regret for you, sir, that is lactose. We have dabbled in doing low alcohol. We did oat milk, but turns out oat milk is a suspension of oat powder in water. So what happens is you end up with all the powder down there. So when you pour it out, you get this nice clear liquid and then this like clunky stuff that comes out. So that didn't particularly work. So we've experimented. We've not found the perfect way of replicating that yet.
Goat milk.
We can't put actual non-pasteurised stuff in a beer, unfortunately. Well, even if we could use it, we couldn't afford to use it on that kind of scale. Yeah.
The other thing is,
I used to work I used to work for St Helens, which is the one in Tesco's. I know it's naturally lactose free.
Well, unless they want to not have their pricing, maybe do it about 1% of existing pricing. It wouldn't be an option.
I don't work for them anymore. I do
Right.
understand.
so
Fair enough.
there's other reasons to use an alternative to lactose, and the other one is for vegans. So people want something to drink that hasn't had any animal product in it. So that's one of the reasons we went to oat milk, and we sent we have beer tanks. So like we have above the bar here, we have transport tanks that get the beer from the brewery to the venues to fill the beer tanks up. So not long after COVID, we sent it was COVID. It was before COVID. We sent our transport tank to Manchester to fill up with 1,000 litres of oat milk.
We struck up a really cool deal.
Yeah.
It was, we will send you a tank, you will fill it with oat milk, we will send you cans of beer. So we had this really cool deal, and they sent us these 1,000 litres, and we made something. And on day one, when you're like packaging this beer and you're going to sell this beer, seems great, but then after a while you do get this sedimentation.
It was good,
issue.
but yeah, it just didn't really hold up, and then plus the costs weren't stacking up. So we were making a slightly inferior product that then massively deteriorated after it wasn't shelf stable, and we realised that we're spending a lot of time and energy trying to replicate something that's not as good, and when we did launch or sell it, it wasn't selling as well either. So people, the mass consumer in the UK, if you've taken something out, usually don't want to drink it. So a great one is gluten. So we used to have a lot of beer in our range, and we still do, that's gluten free. We just don't shout about it because people think we've taken something out to make it better, and we haven't. We've usually used a processing aid that's just reduced the
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing called Untapped. You might have heard of it,
it's a
where
beer
beer
rating.
drinkers, it's kind of a social media thing, it's kind of a beer rating thing, and people can put their feedback on, and they can give you beer a rating. And we did these gluten-free beers, and somebody put on there, I can taste where they've taken the gluten out. It's like, well, you can't. That's not scientifically possible. Because we made, like we were talking about Guinness earlier, you make the same thing, and then you do something to it to remove the gluten. So with a gluten-free beer, you pop in an enzyme, and it turns the big protein molecules that are allergenic into small protein molecules that are not allergenic. That in no way changes the flavour. So anyone that's saying that the gluten-free beer tastes different to the gluten-containing beer is talking, and I'm going to swear now, absolute shite, because it's not possible.
So yeah, we've done stuff like that. But what we've learned over the years is that don't focus on it. Have that information available to the bar manager, to the people serving the beer. So when someone comes to the bar and says, "Have you got any beer that's suitable for celiacs, gluten-free products, all these things?" Yes, we do. It's this, and this. You put gluten-free on the front of it, people are like, "No, thanks. I'll go for the next one." We've adapted the way that we market and promote beers based on customer feedback and interaction. So I think.
But we have attempted to become more inclusive. If you'd followed us earlier in our history, you'd have seen a lot of lactose. You'd have been very offended by what we were doing then. So we do a lot less of it now.
We don't have to bulk. We're a much bigger brewery now, but we don't bulk buy as much lactose as we used to. So we've definitely curtailed that part of our.
But anyway, at that point, we now must talk about
Speaking of
lactose-containing beer.
yeah. So when we first, it's your name next to it, but I'm going to start for a little
Go
bit.
for it. I will drink.
We started, we launched the brewery in April 2016, and in September 2016, we attended our first beer festival, which was York Camera Beer Festival. It used to be held on the Naysmar, the racecourse in York, and a couple of massive tents over there, and one of the biggest beer festivals in the country. And what they wanted some of the local breweries to do was work with a local bar of their choice and come up with a collaboration beer. And there's a bar in York called the Rook and Gaskell, and the bar manager there is, or the landlord there is a guy called Paul. real nice guy. We've known him for years, and he's like, "Can I brew the beer with you guys? What would you like to brew?" And we had a friend who was a home brewer at the time who used to brew a crazy beer, which was a coconut milk stout, and he used to. The processing of it was crazy. There's no way you could do that commercially in a brewery. He used to used to basically break the coconuts open, get the coconut out, hand toast it all, crush it, put it into the beer, and we were like, great, but and use a lot of it as well. How do we do that on a commercial scale so we can make a beer that we can actually sell at the end of it? And we developed, or I developed, a blue Rambo bandana thing where we'd go to Gary the pork pie guy's kitchen in York, and I'd get my blue roll out and put a bandana on, tie it around my head, and we'd just stand near a cooker and basically hand toast coconut for
So yeah,
an
in our
8-hour
very
shift.
early days, in our original bar, we didn't have food. We'd have some packets of crisps.
Oh, we had plenty of food, but we didn't sell food.
Well, obviously. But we then had a pie guy, and he would do the pork pies, you know, like topped with like a nice bit of
Blue
black
cheese.
sausage or blue cheese
Black
or whatever.
pudding,
And we got to know the guy kind of well, and then he let us his kitchen. And it then became a bit of a rite of passage. If you had not been burned by that kitchen while trying to prepare the coconut for this beer, you weren't a proper Brew York employee.
It was a horrible experience, but it was worth it because by the time we got to the end of the process, we'd hand toasted the coconut, we infused it with cacao nibs, so what you use to make chocolate, vanilla, again similar to chocolate, and then
Tonka beans.
Tonka beans. Yeah. How did I forget Tonka beans?
So the inspiration for this beer was twofold. So Wayne's mentioned a guy called Alex who did these coconut beers in our homebrew club, and then pre-Brew York, Wayne and I went to Leeds International Beer Festival, which was held at the Town Hall in Leeds. I think it was probably about 2013.
Yeah, around
and they had a beer there called Tonka, and it was produced by a brewery called Hawkshead. Yeah.
So, yeah,
And it was a 9.5% Tonka bean stout. And we were both blown away with it by it. And I was particularly blown away by it because you kept circulating around the festival. I just sat there at this bar going, I'll have another one.
one of them.
I'll have another one. I thought this thing was incredible.
And this is before we used to get free beer as well.
And I always swore at that point in time, if we ever progressed to having a commercial brewery, I was going to make a beer with Tonka beans.
Yeah, we got the opportunity, so we incorporated the Tonka bean into the recipe. So took Alex's homebrew, incorporated Tonka, made it a little bit more commercially viable by dropping it to 4.3%, and we brewed a cask beer called Toncoco, and that beer has become a little bit synonymous to Brew York because we trademarked the name, and we eventually, and people do tend to think of us a lot, even 10 years on, by this beer. But we weren't happy with that because we were high ABV keg beer drinkers back then, and we wanted something a little bit punchier. So that was September 2016. We launched the beer. We won Canberra Gold Beer of the Festival, which we were super proud of. But next year we were like, can we brew what we really wanted to brew, which is a 7.5% version of that beer called Imperial Toncoco.
Well, that was Leeds International Beer Festival, which kind of brings us full circle because that's where we first had the Tonka bean influence. It was our debut at that festival, I think.
Yeah.
And we decided to elevate that beer to 7.5%. And I think we hit the sweet spot there.
It's ironic because I definitely think still now, Imperial Toncoco at 7.5% was one of the best beers we've ever made, and we don't brew it anymore regularly, or we need to make a reappearance for it.
We do.
Because it's the ABV bracket that doesn't really sell very well at the moment. So we need to bring it back because it doesn't matter about the ABV, whether it sells, it's a great beer and I want to drink it. The one beer we do every year was the one we did the year afterwards, which is Empress Toncoco, which was an audience participation brew in dry January. So we invited the public down to our brewery in January 2018 to help us brew a beer of an audience participation beer. And they said, "Oh, Imperial Toncoco, great, let's go big." So we're like, "That's not big enough." So we went to 10.6%. And we brewed Empress Toncoco for the first time. And we were like, well, we're never going to be able to sell that much of such a strong beer. So let's do our first barrel-aged beers as well. So we bought lots of different bourbon barrels, Jack Daniels,
Jim Beam.
Jim Beam and Buffalo Trace, was it?
No,
Wild Turkey,
no,
first year.
It wasn't Jim Beam. It was Jack Daniels, Wild Turkey, Buffalo Trace.
So our first, so we were like, well, let's go for it. Let's buy some bourbon barrels. Let's brew this strong beer. Let's launch a strong beer, and let's put some of it into barrels to age to see how it could improve. We'd never done it before. We didn't know much about it back then, but we loved the base beer, the 10.6% Empress, and the first preview opportunity we got to try the barrel aged beer, we were all blown away. We were like, this is crazy. And then we did some ABV alcohol testing on it, and it'd gone from 10.4% to about 12.5 or 14%.
No, the worst one was 14%.
It was crazy because the residual bourbon that was left in the barrel, that soaked into the barrel, had then absorbed itself back into the beer, and that makes it illegal to sell because we've effectively combined, like we said earlier about tequila. We've rectified it. We've combined spirit with beer. So we then had to brew another batch of the base beer, the slightly weaker version of Ton Coco, and then we blended the fresh batch back with the stronger batch to bring the ABV down. And in doing so,
that accident has made this beer what it is today, because now we have a batch of beer that we put into a barrel, and we leave it for 6 months, 12 months. And then we have another batch of beer that we brew fresh, and we blend the two together. So you get the best of both worlds. We've got this stuff that's beautifully refined, that's picked up the spirit character that comes from the barrel. And leaving the coconut containing thing for that long, that flavour becomes a bit muted. Yeah. But if you then combine it with the fresh coconut containing thing, you get this really rounded, really smooth product that is this that we're drinking now.
And it's almost the right ABV.
Say again? It is hard, but thankfully we have lots of good analytical equipment, and when we're blending stuff, it's easy for us to regulate it back to where it's supposed to be.
Does anyone in the audience normally drink beer like this?
Are you going to the Ebor next?
So the separate question from the audience, are we going to Ebor next week? No. It's my idea of hell because we'll literally be I'd love to get an invite to the Ebor to have our Brew York van there serving beer, but they're John Smiths. John Smiths have every race course in the UK, so we don't get a look at them.
Yeah. So anyway, we told you about the background of this beer. We haven't told you about this specific variant.
Oh, sorry. Before we do that, I just wanted a bit of an audience participation. Who normally drinks this style of beer? Oh, so we do have somebody in the audience. So anyone who doesn't normally drink this style
where's
of beer?
Joanna? Why is her arm
she is
up?
at the back.
Was your arm up, Joanna?
It's the strength of it really makes it feel like that. That's got to admit, one of my favourite variations of Empress I've tried. I think mainly because it's now probably 20 degrees because
I mean, this
the
is very
temperature transfer is pretty well. But yeah, sorry, go on.
The cherry Ton Coco. Good, yeah. So, slight aside, the reason why that works particularly well is Tonka is almond is arsenic. The centre of a cherry, the cherry pit, is arsenic. So they have the kind of common lineage of flavour. So that's why it works so well together. It's not arsenic in a way that's going to poison you, by the way, guys. It's just like low-level arsenic, and that tastes like almond.
So one of the things we didn't mention about Tonka beans. So we love this beer. The different variations of it have done really, really well for us. We won the UK's best barrel-aged beer for a variation of this beer a few years back.
And the World Beer Awards.
World Beer Awards. So we just the World Beer Awards. So we won a lot of awards for this beer, the different variations of it. But we're not allowed to sell it into America, where it's a huge beer country, because of the Tonka bean. The Tonka bean is illegal in America because it's a blood thinner.
It's a blood thinner. It's an anticoagulant.
So you can kill people.
So this wouldn't be if you were to eat 30 beans, you would bleed out and die. Yeah. But I defy you to try and eat one of them. Yeah. On their own, they're goddamn disgusting. Trust me, I've tried. They're really, really not very nice. The only way you're eating 30 of them is if someone's forcing them down your neck. And then people say to us, is it a risk with it being in the beer? And I'm like, no, you'll die of alcohol poisoning first
So, yeah,
before you consume enough of that for it to be a
we've
problem.
definitely not been to beer festivals in America and poured this beer.
We've only done it 3 times.
So you definitely, we don't know what it's got.
But anyway, so this specific variant, so we've done various iterations of this type of beer. Wayne has spoken there about the 7.5, we've done the 10.6. We've taken this up as big as 15%. But what we do now annually is we do this beer, Empress Toncoco, and we do different barrel interpretations of it, and we do different flavour interpretations of it. And this year you're able to get 10 different variants. So we have the standard one before we adulterate it with barrel. We have an espresso one where we've added coffee to it, and that releases next month, I believe. And then we've done variants that have been aged in Grand Marnier barrels, so you get that kind of orange chocolate type thing going on with it. We've done ones that are aged in bourbon, and then we've done ones that are aged in rum barrels. And then those we've also added other things to. So the one that's aged in rum barrels, we then added some spicing, and we added some coffee. So overall there are 10 different variants. And this has been aged in Martinique Agricola rum barrels. And that's because we sourced this from France, and Martinique is a French Caribbean island. So it has the French Caribbean way of producing rum. So normal rum is produced from molasses. This agricole rum is produced from fresh cane sugar. And that means it's like an AOC. It's a protected regional product. So, you know, like how fizzy wine that comes from Champagne is champagne. You move that slightly, like 1 mile up the road, you can't call it champagne.
Like the pasty, the Cornish pasty.
So same thing. So you can only produce this type of rum in that area, in that way, and call it that thing. So it's a very special kind of rum, and we got some of those barrels, and that's what this has been aged in. And I'm not going to claim we made a genius move by taking something that contains coconut and combined it with something that has rum in, because sometimes you just got to take the things that work and apply them, because they work really, really well. Would you believe we'd been making this coconut-containing beer for about 5 years before we thought, duh, rum. We'd aged it in so many things before we thought, God, the most obvious thing to do this with is rum.
That's because we actually have our own rum that we make out of this beer, or make with the contents of this beer. And when we were starting to do that, I was like, why don't we barrel age the beer on rum? Why are we making a rum that's based on this beer? It's like, oh, yeah, kind of obvious, but it's only obvious once you know. So if you've not tried it, Toncoco rum is on in all the bars. It's my favourite, and it's I've got a 3 brother-in-laws, and they all they like beer full stop, but they love the Tonka rum that we do. And it's one of those ones where you can have it with a Coca-Cola or whatever you like to drink your rum with, or you can just have it as a shot or a sipper. It's really, really nice. So if you speak to Joanna afterwards, she might get you a bit of discount on it. So back onto the beer itself. Has anyone got any questions about the beer before we move on to a few other bits we need to cover off? Flux.
Each of our barrel-aged beers is a numbered flux.
Is that what we're up to? 44?
I didn't realise we were up to that many.
Wow. So we that's our 44th barrel-aged beer we've ever launched, which you've just caught us both off guard with there, because we didn't even realise we'd done that many.
These, so we barrel-aged these all from maybe last May, June. We packaged all of these in January, and we're then spreading the release out across the year, because the beautiful thing about a dark beer is the flavour continues to refine over time. If you have a pale beer, something containing hops, please don't try and age it. The flavour in that dies very young. They need to be drunk fresh. But a dark beer like this, these ones, well, we've had it in barrel for a year, and before that it was fermented for however long. You could keep these for years, and they'll just keep getting better and better and better. I think we put a 3-year timestamp on this, and I'd even ignore that. You could drink it years beyond that. and it would still be fine. It would be even better.
Capacity where you can go back
Yeah,
in time.
well, that's kind of what we're going with. But yeah, we when we first did barrel aged beers, we have. It's not a vanity project, but it's a little bit of a brewery. It's a little bit of a vanity project because you take a product that you can sell now, you put it in a barrel, and you just hope it gets better. In a year's time, you hope you can sell it. So we were investing a lot of time and money into our barrel aged project, and then we got to a stage where we put too much product into barrel, so much so that we weren't testing them regularly enough. And then we're like, oh, we probably should release that beer. Came to test it, it'd gone sour, it's spoiled, and you've got hundreds of thousands of pounds just going down the drain because you hadn't.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Sorry, hundreds. Hundreds of pounds.
I think
or
you and I
thousands
would be
of pounds is what I
bankrupt.
meant. Going down the drain because you hadn't done your testing, your due diligence. So we reduced our barrel age program. We started doing less of them. But what we realised is we need to lock things in. Beers don't just keep improving. Just leaving them in barrel doesn't make them better. You've got to keep tasting them, and maybe it gets to 8 months and it's tasting great, 9 months and it's starting to deteriorate. So you need to then lock it in at that position. You don't leave it longer and hope it gets better. So you need to package that beer and basically let it mellow. So that's what we do, and we take the beer, we package it, we lock it in to its barrel aged potential, and then it mellows while it's in can until we release it.
If you'll indulge me for a second, I'll do a little bit more science stuff. So when you put a beer into barrel, you're aiming to get a few things out of that. So first of all, you're looking to get the previous occupant of the barrel, the form of spirit. You're trying to get that character into the beer. You're also looking to get an interaction between the wood and the beer to do something. And what's going to happen is the wood and the beer interact and they create a compound called vanillin. Vanillin, does that remind you of something? Vanilla. So it creates this creamy, soft character. So the other thing is you've got the component of time. So if you put something that's got all these big molecules that might not be particularly palatable, and you give it time and these big molecules break down into these smaller molecules that then become quite palatable. So you've got the combination of it softening because of interaction with wood, picking up this flavour, and then also softening as it kind of ages. All great. But excessive contact with wood means it starts to do one of two things. It's going to pick up too much of the wood character, in which case all those other things that you were trying to get doesn't matter because you're going to start to taste more of that instead. And as the beer ages in there, you're also seeing some of it evaporate. And as it evaporates, it creates a vacuum in there. And you've got this headspace where air starts to get in. And an interaction of air with your beer is not good. It starts to turn your beautiful beer into something more reminiscent of sherry. Because oxygen and alcohol equals vinegar. So it's not good. So you, as Wayne was saying there, you pick the moment when you package it. We don't have to sell it at that point in time. And the way I would talk to our team about that is because I always remember, do you remember the Jolly Green Giant?
Locked in fresh. Or
Yeah, locked in freshness. You harvest the peas, you freeze the peas, and then you consume them still as fresh. That's what we're doing with barrel-aged beers.
Ho, ho, ho.
We package
Barrel-aged
them
beer.
when they're at their peak, but we don't have to sell them then. We've just opted to put them into the packaging while we consider them to be at their optimal.
So as usual, we've talked and not covered half the things we were supposed to cover. So bearing in mind it's 9:15 and we were supposed to have wrapped up. And some people have a beer in front of them, but some people don't.
But there is one thing I did need to cover. We were going to talk about updates about the brewery, and I was going to talk about all our beautiful sustainability efforts and all that kind of stuff. Is this like time?
Last orders, time in the bar.
And I was going to talk about all of our sustainability efforts, which is all very valiant. But I did want to give a shout out to my team. It's 100% certain none of them are watching this, and none of them will see this message.
Oh, they will.
But on the off chance that one of them does, and one of them passes it on, I want to give a shout out to my team because it's been hard over the last year. We've had some severe temperatures. It's been really difficult for us to deal with this. Beer production is very temperature susceptible, and our cooling system at the rate that we produce beer is always a bit on the back foot. When it gets to these kind of temperatures, it's hard. And it's hard because we're working in a general air-conditioned environment. So best I can do for my guys is sling them the odd ice cream and say thank you, guys. So I'd want to give them a genuine thank you tonight for doing all you have done and getting us to the point where we have these beautiful beers to be able to present, because our industry doesn't pay well. Everybody is doing this for the love of it. And I think every now and again that needs to be acknowledged. So, thank you.
Cheers.
Am I going to give him a big bonus next month? No, but I will guarantee more ice cream.
So we've got a few little bits to cover off, and then we'll maybe take the stream offline and then do some audience questions if people want to hang around for them, which obviously we're more than
You'll have to
welcome
move that nearer if you want me to read it.
So very, very quickly, upcoming beers. So what we normally do is, because the people at home are buying our beers and getting them regularly, we tell them what they've got to look forward to in the next box. And I'm intrigued about this because I've forgotten half the different things we're doing. So the birthday beer series, so it was our 10th birthday, I might have mentioned that a few times. So we've got 2 more beers to finish off the 10th birthday series. We did 10 collaborations, 10 international breweries for that series. The next one coming up, we launch very, very soon, which is a collaboration with Amundsen Brewery from Norway, one of my favourite breweries. Jeff and his team produce amazing big stouts like we were just drinking. Usually, we like to call them dick beers.
No, he likes to call them dick beers.
Dessert in a can. They're very, very strong, very, very nice, enjoyable beers. So from Norway, we decided to lean on that a little bit, but make it sessionable. So 5.5% dick.
Well, no, it's an unusual beer we're doing. We're going to do a 5.5% Norwegian campfire porter. So a Scandinavian thing to throw in a beer is juniper. So we've got a bit of juniper going in there. We've got some smoked malt that we're getting from Germany. And then we're putting some like marshmallow flavouring in. So you need to imagine yourself sat in Sweden by a campfire toasting marshmallows. That's kind of what this beer is going to be.
What about Norway? Where the beer?
Oh, Norway. Shit. Jeff, I definitely didn't do that.
It's not like we've been to your brewery in Norway, Jeff, so don't worry.
You're going to watch this, so it don't matter.
And then our final beer of the birthday series, our 10th one, we couldn't unfortunately make a collaboration work with our friends from Tuju in Finland because of the Finnish government won't let collaborations work anymore. So what we've done is gone back to our roots, and 10 years ago when we started our brewery, a couple of our really good friends, Fierce Brewery from Aberdeen and Elusive Brewery from Finch Hempstead near Reading, started at the same time. So 2 great friends we've got who brewed 10 years ago. So we're doing a freeway collaboration for that one. And that's going to be our favourite style, which is a West Coast IPA. So take the beer we started with, amp the ABV up, make it a bit more bitter and piney, love a West Coast. So we're going to do a 7.2%.
We're going to do a modern West Coast. And then, because our sales director is English but spent most of his childhood living in America, we have made Halloween a big thing. So we do 3 new Halloween beers every year. We always do one that's a pumpkin stout. And this year's, it's going to be very similar to last year's. It's going to be kind of that Starbucks pumpkin latte thing. It's going to be called Frankenstein because this year's Halloween theme is literary. I'm surprised I could say that, actually.
Wow.
So yeah, literary themed. So we're doing Frankenstein as a pumpkin stout. We're doing Dracula, which is going to be a raspberry marshmallow and vanilla pastry stout. And then we're doing Jekyll and Hyde, which is a 6.6% New England IPA, a hazy like the Juice Campbell that we had earlier.
And then Christmas. So obviously it's getting a bit cold now, so we need to start thinking about what's coming up. And like Lee said, we've got a plan. So we were one of the first breweries in the UK really focused on Christmas beers because of the Pogues. So we're like, well, we're going to have to do a Christmas beer, aren't we? It's going to be called Fairy Tale of Brew York. It's going to go well. And every year since we started, we've done a variation of that beer. So 4.9% milk stout. We did do a non-milk stout version at one point, but it's always been a stout. It's always been 4.9%, and we changed the flavour to try and make it Christmassy every different time. So this year, it's going to be a snowball. It's going to be a snowball stout. So it's going to be chocolate, coconut, and marshmallow.
So we should say For these beers, we throw it out to our whole team. Our whole team, so we employ 170 odd people now, so all of them have the opportunity to contribute ideas. And then we pick the best ideas and then we take it forward and we have a little vote. And the best one this year was the one that Wayne's just described that.
Phil.
There, and it was a guy called Phil in our finance team that came up with that one.
Finance, Phil. Love a snowball.
And then we always do a it was 6.5%. This year it's going to be 5.5% sour. And the idea from this came from Sam, our export manager, and it's going to be a lemon and raspberry posset tart sour.
So that's called Dreams of Brew York. So Fairy Tale of Brew York, Dreams of Brew York, and then we always end with a Nightmare. So Nightmare of Brew York is 7.5%, so it's a bigger stout, and it's always based on last year's Fairy Tale. So we take the base Fairy Tale and we brew it bigger for the following year. So this year it's 7.5% walnut whip imperial milk stout.
And then the one that we've not named yet, and the one I'm most excited about is, if you're familiar with the beers that we did for our birthday. So we did some very special beers that we put in bottle for the first time. We did a barley wine, we did a golden sour, and we did an imperial stout. We're going to be blending the barley wine and we're going to be blending the stout into one beer, and that's going to be released at Christmas with the addition of some Christmas spicing. So we don't have a name for that, but it's going to be a very gentle 12.5%.
And then we do your more enjoyable everyday beer, which is our 4.1% cask beer called Rudolph Reigns. So that'll be back again. So it's a bit, like we said, it's early to be talking about these, but Christmas is a big thing, and we do a lot of volume of these beers. And if we need to get this into Scandinavia in particular, where they love Christmas beers, we need to be brewing it and packaging it and out the door in September. That's how early these things are. So we need to be on it, and if we're doing that, then we want to let you guys know so you can look forward to it. So it's almost Christmas. So start the countdown.
So that's us. I'm going to conclude by saying thank you for persevering with us and putting up with the issues we had at the start. Technology is not always man's friend, as we found today. So yeah, thank you for joining us. Those of you in the room, we will happily field questions once again. Those of you online, thanks for being with us. We will release the next date soon. I'm assuming that probably will be for the Christmas beer tasting. Yeah. We tend to do that every year. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you again soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right.